Hello and welcome to Westcott Woodworks YouTube and wherever else I decide to post this video channel. I'm going to do a quick video today talking about the Kreg jig. I'm going to look at two different ones. I've got this smaller version here that I keep in my shop. I have another version I keep in my trailer. That's just an older version of this and kind of comes with some more parts. And then I have the big brother over that way. I'll show you here in a little bit. Before we do that, I want to just talk about pocket holes in general and why you would use them, maybe why you wouldn't use them, what their purpose is. And so let's get started. Well, first things first, let's talk about the advantages and maybe why you would use a pocket hole screw as a type of joinery versus another type, for instance. The main reason I do is because these little guys right here, nobody wants to pay you to use them, to be quite honest with you. Pocket hole screws and the joinery and stuff, they're pretty solid. I'm not going to say it's as solid as, you know, hand cutting like a mortise and tenon joint and putting it together that way. But as far as just like, you know, cabinets like you can see here, face frames, cabinet doors and things. It's a quick way to assemble things to make some of the woodworking projects and things that you're trying to do and maybe sell more affordable for other people. Because to be honest with you, to cut one joint with these takes a lot more setup time, a lot more manpower, I guess you could say, to do it, and a whole lot more time. The pocket hole that I just showed you a little bit ago in the last clip was on the side of a cabinet that's right over there. This is actually going to attach to the front of it. This is a face frame for a 3-drawer cabinet. And as you can see on the back here, it is all put together with pocket holes at each joint. Once you put these things together, I put just a little bit of glue on each joint. These are not going to come back apart unless you either take the screws out, cut it apart, or throw it down on the ground maybe really hard. It might come apart. It might not. I don't really know. Because I don't generally throw things on the ground in my shop other than trash. But let's go over to Big Brother here, and I'm going to show you how to set up the Kreg Foreman. So here you have the Kreg Foreman. Several different moving parts on it. Sorry you can't see my face. Actually, that's probably more to your benefit than anything. But you've got this lever over here, the arm that you pull down. When you pull this down, it's going to expose the blade, or not the blade, the bit, and bring it up so that you can drill your pocket holes in. It does have this safety for your thumb, so you can't just pull the trigger. But generally what I do when I'm going to cut a bunch of pocket holes is I pull the safety and pull the trigger, and I leave that on pretty much the whole time while I'm doing these pocket holes. That way I don't have to wait for the RPMs to rev up. You never want to just stick a piece in there and just do a quick, you know, turn it on and pull it down quick, because you're going to bog down the blade. You're probably going to burn out, or not, I keep saying blade. I don't know why that is, but you're going to bog down the motor and you could burn out your bit a whole lot faster. And you're not going to get as clean of a cut. So let it get up to its full RPMs before you go pulling down on this. Basic setup stuff though, you've got these two little toggles here. This moves forward and backwards. It's got pre-marked on here for 1.5 inch, 3/4, and 1/2 inch. The only thing I really don't like about this, and it's not that big of a deal because I figured it out anyway, the measurement, is I do a lot of 1 inch thick stock items as well on here, and there's no mark for that. So I measured, you know, how far I need to move this for each indentation, and just put a little mark on there so I know where to go. But basically you're going to set the back of this fence up here. Let me make sure you can see. Yep. The back of this fence will go on the line. So if you're doing 3/4 inch stock, set that on 3/4 inch right there. Lock that down. On this side, 3/4 inch. Boom. Good to go. Then what you'll do is you can twist this up and get it out of your way so you can see. You're going to want to pull this down and look and make sure that the bit is not touching the fence. You want it to be really close to the fence, but not actually touching it. That should be self-explanatory as to why you would not want your bit to go into the metal fence. If you don't understand that, I might have to make another video about common sense. But anyway, so you'll set that up that way. I'm going to bring the camera down here so you can see that in just a bit. But before I do that, I'll keep going on from this angle. So once you get the bit set up to where you want, you'll take your workpiece in and you're going to screw this down. Let me actually get a workpiece. This is a cutting board. I'm not actually going to cut this, but you would screw this down until it's just right above there. You don't want to screw it tighter. You'll never get that thing in. And then tighten down this locking set nut here. I don't know what you'd call that, actually. A locking nut, maybe, to keep this from moving. And then you'll be able to see when you pull this down, this does clamp down in there, and it'll keep the piece from moving. And you're pretty much good to go. Let me show you that other view here real quick. So as you can see, when I pull down the lever, that bit goes forward. I can't really get it to focus right on that bit. But you can see, if I move you just a little bit more, that's going to be tough to get you to that angle. But my bit is just right before that metal fence and not touching it. So that's kind of where you want it to be, what you'd want it to look like when you set that up. I just wanted to zoom in a little closer when you're trying to adjust this arm, how far, to let the blade go out. As you pull down this arm, this knob here is got like a stopper inside the actual machine that will only let this go down so far. So as you're adjusting to let the blade, or I keep saying blade, I don't know why I'm doing that. The bit, as you're adjusting it, you turn this knob here counterclockwise or clockwise, depending on if you want to get the bit to go further out or not let it go as far out. And then it has one of those locking nuts on there as well. One other thing I can show you is to access the bit, if you were to need to change this, would be to lift this little platform up. You can kind of pull this back here a little bit. And I'm not really going to necessarily show you under there, but there is a little storage compartment down there. That's how you would access the bit if you need to change it, if you need to go with a bigger one or get that resharpened or replace, whatever it may be. But this is the Kreg Foreman. This is what I would call the big brother to the Kreg jigs. It's the biggest one you can get before you kind of go into their industrial stuff, which hook up to air compressors and things, which are really nice, but they're out of a lot of people's price range if you're just a small one-man shop or operation, or you do it for a hobby. But again, the Kreg Foreman, I'd recommend it if you're trying to make money doing woodworking and do a lot of pocket holes, just because it makes things so much easier. It is easier to whip out. The other jig that I'm going to show you here in just a bit, but if you're doing lots of production and you need one setup, this is definitely the way to go. So now I'm going to show you little brother, and there's several different options. This one literally just comes with a couple of things in it. There's the one I keep in my work trailer actually has like a, I don't know what to call it other than a contraption that you set up that has a clamp on it. You can push it down, it holds the piece together. I actually find it probably a little more cumbersome to use than what I'm going to show you now. Let me readjust the camera here down so you can see what we're looking at. So if you open this up, you'll see, oh, they didn't send me all the stuff. It's a joke. I actually have it sitting right down here. There's your number 2 square head bit, which you're going to use for putting the screws in. The drill has to be at such an angle. You're not going to be able to do it with one of those tiny number 2 bits. You're going to need a longer extension here. Also, when I say extension, I mean you need a longer bit in general. If you try and use the extensions, more times than not, the extension is too thick to actually fit through here, and you'll end up kind of messing up the, I don't know, just kind of messes up the wood and makes it not look as clean. The other thing that's in the kit is this, the actual jig itself, I would say. There's several different ones I've seen out there. This one has 2 screw holes. There's some that only have 1. There's some that have 3, like the one in my trailer. It's got this circle slot, I guess you could say. Right here you can see there's a slot. That's made to fit with pretty much any of the Kreg clamps that are the 2 face-framed or the 2 flat-faced clamps. They have several different clamp options, but there's on this particular one, there's a smaller circle and a bigger circle. This fits the bigger circle. You literally will take this and just slip it right into there like that, and then when you want to clamp it down to something, it has these little stops, and I'll show you how to set those up in a bit. But you literally will just take this over here to those stops and clamp down on it. Sorry, I'm trying to do this and film it at one time. Clamp it on there like so, and then you're set up to put your drill set up on there and drill down into there and do your pocket holes. But let's look at a little bit more on this jig itself. I might have jumped ahead of myself, sorry. If you look at the side or the bottom of this particular one, it has all of these different measurements on here. It starts at 1/2 inch and goes all the way up to 1.5 inches. Most of the time I'm going to be at the 3/4 or the 1 inch, so you just push down on the side here and push it up until the arrow lines up with 3/4, which I went too far. There we go. So that's at 3/4. So now what you do is you take your bit, which also would come in that kit, and it has this little like a stop washer on there with a set screw. You'll need to keep your case. Don't throw this case away because you'll use this to set this actual thing up. So if this were in the case, and it might be hard for you to see some of this, but there is a scale on this case right over here. And so what you'll want to do is, if you're doing 3/4 inch, you set this up to 3/4 inch, and then you're going to take the Allen key that comes in the kit. You're going to loosen this set screw on the bit right here, and then I'll just go ahead and do it. I might have got that really tight on there. Sometimes I forget how big my own muscles are. There we go. And this slides up and down, and so you'll actually line this up on this scale wherever you want it to be. So I'm doing 3/4 inch. I'm going to go up to 3/4 inch, and you're going to do, let's see if I can hold it this way. So we're at 3/4 of an inch right there, and you're going to do it off the front of the washer. So do it from this side of it, and then you take your set screw. Woo! Just moved it again. Take your set screw and set that up. Now, if you do not do this, one of two things is going to happen. Either you're not going to drill the pocket hole deep enough and the joint's not going to be nearly as strong as it should be, or, and I've done this before, where I've accidentally misset it up. And for instance, on something like this, on a face frame, you could drill too far and then your screw actually comes out at an angle through the front of your face frame, which if you're going to make holes in the fronts of your face frames, you might as well just screw through the front of them and then fill the nail holes, but I don't prefer to do things that way. So that is how you set up this smaller guy here. Now let's talk about some of the screws. So there are several different types of screws. You can use them for different applications. I usually, to be honest with you, I buy one type and stick to it. Now with that being said, I'm about to show you several different types, and the reason for that is because I actually brought some of my screw storage containers and refilled them and moved some stuff around, and so I actually have a couple different types in here. This first thing I'm going to show you is just a regular assembly screw, and you can see that it's got this angled head on there that sinks in nicely to wood. This is not what you use for pocket hole screws. because this angled part, this screw is going to keep eating into the wood, just keep pulling through, and you don't want that, so put those away. What you want is one of these pan head type screws. So you can see that the bottom of this screw is flat. So what you're going to do is, if you're putting your screws in, you're going to take an impact driver and just tighten it as hard as you can. I'm just kidding. If you stop the video before I keep explaining the rest of this, you're going to really be mad at me if you do that. Do not do that. Use a regular drill. This is not necessarily a shout out to Milwaukee, but I've had a few different 12-volt drills in my life, and I love the Milwaukee Fuel 12-volt systems. I can make another video on those, other than to say they fit nicely in your hand. And they're lightweight. They can get into tighter spaces than your 18-volt drills are going to be able to. So I like them. Anyway, use whatever drill you've got, unless you want to buy a new one. And I'd recommend this. But on your drill, you want to use one that has the clutch system. So if you go all the way down to the lowest setting, like this one is 2, and I pull the trigger, real easily, I can hold on to this, and it's going to stop this from spinning. If you crank it all the way up, that's when you're going to get into several different settings. On this particular one, it's got a hammer. So this actually is a 12-volt hammer drill if you need it for that. You don't want to use that for this, though. If you go to the next setting, it's got what looks like a drill bit. That's for when you're actually drilling stuff. You don't want the clutch to be on and stop spinning when it binds down too much, when you're trying to drill pocket holes or any other thing for that matter. For me, depends on the type of wood, but I'm usually somewhere between like 8 and 12 on here. And you kind of have to test. You don't want to overdo it, but you kind of have to test to see. I mean, for this face frame, this is soft maple. You say soft maple, but I mean, if somebody smack you in the head with it, it's not going to feel very soft. It's still a hardwood. But it's softer than, say, hickory or a Brazilian cherry or maybe a white oak even. So you'll have to kind of crank this to different settings depending on which type of wood you're using. But for this one, I would use probably about a 9 or a 10. What you don't want to do is let it keep spinning. Because of this flat head, what it's going to do in this hardwood, it's going to pretty easily actually strip these threads out. Not on the screw, but strip the threads out in the hole that you're trying to drill. And then you're not going to have any holding power at all. So don't do that. One other key thing to remember is with hardwoods, you want to use fine threaded screws. So I'm going to hold this up. I don't know if you're going to be able to see the difference from looking at it, but we're going to give her a try. So the one right here, this is a coarse thread screw. This one here is a fine threaded screw. With all hardwoods, use a fine threaded screw. With your softwoods or with plywoods, you can use the coarse thread because they're not going to strip out as easy, and they're softer, so you actually want a coarser thread that's not going to, I guess, let loose as easy is going to be the best way to say it. Again, I usually put a little glue in there, squirt it out, spread it around with my finger, and then I wipe my finger with glue on it underneath my workbench. You ever been like sitting in a chair and you go to scoot it forward and you're like, oh, that's gross. Either somebody put their gum under there or they pick their nose, and everybody has a place where they wipe their boogers. But my place where I wipe my glue is right under my workbench. So I do that, wipe off my finger, screw these in. The wonderful thing about this is you don't have to leave it clamped. The screws are going to hold it together. So you can literally take your finger again, wipe off any glue that squeezes out, wipe that under your workbench, and move on to the next joint or the next thing. It's that easy. I can't really think of much else to say at this point, so I will leave the comment section there. If you have any questions, go ahead and put them below, and I will try and answer them as best as I can.